Okay, let's dive straight in today. We're tackling something almost everyone bumps into at some point. That really tricky, often unsettling feeling of jealousy, especially in our relationships.
Hmm. It's a powerful emotion, isn't it? It can feel, well, overwhelming sometimes, confusing,
Mm.
maybe even a bit shameful for people.
Yeah,
But like anything we explore in these deep dives,
yeah,
understanding it is really the first step to navigating it differently.
absolutely. And the good news, looking through this stack of sources you shared, including some really practical insights from a guide focused specifically on mastering jealousy, is that this isn't something you're just, stuck with.
Yeah.
There are actual ways to work through it.
Right. That's our mission today, really. We're going to unpack what the material says about why jealousy shows up, pull out those core insights, and probably most importantly, explore some actionable strategies for responding to it.
Okay.
And responding in ways that, believe it or not, can actually strengthen your connection instead of damaging it.
Right, because even though it feels negative, maybe it's trying to tell us something useful. So let's start there. What's actually at the root of this feeling? The sources, they really highlight that jealousy isn't just random or, always irrational. Sometimes it's pointing to something deeper that needs attention.
Exactly. Think of it less like a flaw and more like a signal. The material identifies some pretty common culprits. One major driver is often low self-esteem,
Oh, okay.
that internal whisper that maybe you're not quite enough for your partner, which leads you to constantly scan for threats, you know?
No, that makes total sense. If you don't feel fully secure in yourself, it's just easier to believe you could be replaced or aren't worthy of their full attention. What else fuels it?
Well, past betrayals are a huge factor. If trust has been broken before, whether it's in this relationship or maybe a significant one from your past,
Hmm.
that old wound can make you highly sensitive to perceived threats, even if the current situation is actually harmless. It's like your past is casting this shadow over your present.
And we can't forget the external stuff, right? The sources mention comparison culture,
Oh, yeah.
which is just everywhere,
Yeah.
especially with social media, constantly seeing these like curated, highlight reel versions of other people's relationships. That can make anyone feel like their own is lacking, sparking insecurity.
It's so hard not to compare when you're constantly fed images of perfection. And then there's a really fundamental one, just a lack of communication within the relationship itself.
Okay.
When assumptions start filling the void where clear, open conversation should be, uh, jealousy just has fertile ground to grow.
So we're seeing it. The feeling itself is complex. It draws from personal history, external factors, relationship dynamics. But here's what feels like a crucial insight from the material. Jealousy itself isn't really the problem you have to eliminate. It's how you respond to it that makes all the difference.
Yeah, it's the pivot point, exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of letting it control you, the sources sort of outline a roadmap, a step-by-step way to process it and address it constructively.
Okay, walk us through it then. What's the very first thing the material suggests doing when that, wave of jealousy hits?
The absolute first step is simply to own the feeling. It's about acceptance,
Mm.
not judging yourself for it, just recognizing and naming the emotion without immediately acting on it.
Just acknowledging, okay, I'm feeling jealous right now. That sounds deceptively simple.
It could be incredibly powerful, though. The guide actually suggests even saying it out loud, just to yourself, like, I'm feeling jealous right now because I'm afraid of losing them. Giving it words like that starts to take away some of its power over you.
Right. And instead of immediately jumping to conclusions about your partner, the focus shifts inward first.
Precisely. You ask yourself, what is this jealousy trying to teach me? Is it tapping into some deep-seated insecurity I have? Maybe a fear that I'm not lovable? Or, is it potentially picking up on something genuine that needs exploring later?
It forces you to pause and kind of self-reflect before you react. The material also suggests journaling jealous thoughts, which seems like a really great practical tool here.
Oh, it is. Writing it down can help you identify patterns. Maybe you notice jealousy always flares up in specific situations or around certain people. It helps you see the situation more objectively, outside the heat of the moment.
Yeah, seeing it on paper might help you realize that the stories your mind is creating aren't necessarily, well, reality, which leads perfectly to what the material calls step two: separate emotion from reality.
Oh, our minds are fantastic storytellers, aren't they?
Mhm.
Especially when we're feeling vulnerable or insecure. Jealousy often fuels these narratives that might have very little basis in fact.
I know exactly what you mean, like those examples in the source. Just because she smiled at his coworker, the story instantly becomes she must like him more.
Right. Or He's been on his phone a lot lately. He's
Yeah.
probably texting someone else. In the moment, those feel like absolute truths, but they're interpretations, often driven by fear.
Okay.
So the crucial questions the guide prompts you to ask yourself are, is there actual proof? And am I reacting based on fear or based on facts?
That's tough to do right in the heat of it, though. Is that where something like mindfulness or just pausing comes in?
Absolutely. Deep breaths, taking a moment to pause and reflect, just grounding yourself in the present reality. These are essential. The material even offers a really powerful mantra here. My thoughts are not always the truth.
Wow. Just letting that sink in for a second. My thoughts are not always the truth. That feels like it could diffuse so much immediate panic. Okay, so you've acknowledged the feeling, you've questioned the story, your mind's spinning. Now what? How do you actually talk about it with your partner?
That brings us right to step 3. Talk, don't accuse. This is like the golden rule when you decide you need to communicate your feelings,
Instead of just launching an attack on your partner.
which is tempting sometimes.
It is tempting, but exactly. The core technique highlighted is using I statements instead of you statements. It shifts the focus entirely to your internal experience, which is much, much less likely to make your partner defensive.
Can you give us an example of how that sounds different? Sure. So instead of saying something accusatory like, you're always flirting with people, which immediately puts them on the defensive,
Right, wall goes up.
wall goes straight up. The material suggests trying something more like, hey, I felt a little insecure when I saw you chatting with her earlier. I know it might be nothing, but I just wanted to share what I felt.
Ah, that feels so much more open, doesn't it? And inviting of a real conversation. It sounds like you're sharing a vulnerability rather than like leveling an accusation.
And that's what builds emotional safety in the relationship. It creates a space where both partners feel they can share difficult feelings without fearing judgment or attack. It's really foundational for navigating any sensitive topic, not just jealousy.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, we touched on self-esteem earlier as a root cause. The material comes back to that pretty strongly with step 4, work on self-worth.
Yes, absolutely. Because jealousy often finds its strongest grip when you don't feel secure in your own value. Building yourself up from the inside out is honestly one of the most effective long-term strategies for reducing jealousy.
What kind of things does the guide suggest here? Like practical stuff?
Yeah, tangible actions. Things like making a list of qualities you genuinely appreciate or love about yourself. Actively celebrating small daily wins, not just the huge accomplishments. And really intentionally surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, who support you, who see your value.
Because when you feel secure in who you are, you're just less likely to see other people as threats to your relationship.
Precisely. The material reinforces this with a really powerful truth. It says, you are enough. You are worthy of love without comparison, without competition. Really internalizing that can dramatically shift your perspective.
That's incredibly important. Powerful stuff. Now, moving from the internal work and the communication piece, step 5 focuses more on the relationship as a unit. Set healthy boundaries together. And the key here seems to be that this isn't about controlling your partner, right? It's about creating shared clarity.
It's exactly right. It's a collaborative conversation. The material encourages couples to actively discuss and agree on what feels right for them. Asking questions like, what does flirting actually mean to us in a way that feels okay?
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about close friendships with people of the opposite sex? How should we handle, say, social media connections and interactions?
So these aren't rules being imposed by one person onto the other. They're agreements built on mutual respect and understanding.
Exactly. They're respect-based agreements that actually build trust by clarifying expectations and creating a kind of framework for navigating interactions outside the core relationship.
Okay, that's helpful. But what about the situations where the jealousy is really, really tied to past hurt, like a broken trust in the specific relationship? Step 6 addresses this head on. Rebuild trust if it's been broken.
Yeah, this is a crucial and often very challenging step. The material is pretty clear that rebuilding trust takes time, it takes consistent effort, and it takes real honesty from both sides.
So if you were the one who was hurt, what does the guide recommend? How do you handle that?
It's vital not to just pretend the past didn't happen or, bottle up those residual feelings. You need to express how the past betrayal still impacts you in the present.
Okay.
And understand that it's okay, in fact, it's necessary, to ask for reassurance from your partner as part of that healing process.
And flip side, if you were the one who broke the trust, what's the advice there?
The emphasis there is really on transparency and consistent behavior. Actions truly speak louder than words over time in this case. You need to avoid defensiveness when your partner expresses their lingering insecurity or asks for that reassurance. Your goal is to demonstrate trustworthiness through your actual conduct day in, day out.
That sounds hard but necessary. And for couples really struggling with this, the material points out that couples therapy can be an incredibly valuable tool, right, for navigating those deep wounds and finding a path back to connection.
Absolutely. Sometimes you just need a skilled, impartial third party to help facilitate that healing conversation.
Okay, so finally, step 7 is about framing this whole challenge a bit differently. Focus on growth together. Seeing jealousy not just as a relationship killer, but maybe as an opportunity for the couple to actually become stronger.
Yeah, it's about actively turning towards each other and intentionally nurturing the connection. The sources suggest practices like establishing regular relationship check-ins, maybe weekly, maybe bi-weekly, where you simply ask each other, how are we feeling about us? What's working well? What feels maybe a little off?
Celebrating each other's strengths, too. Making dedicated time for quality connection. That classic advice, but it really matters, phones down, actually being present with each other.
Exactly that. The material reminds us that healthy relationships aren't about being perfect all the time. They're about being real, being intentional, and choosing love and understanding even when you hit these messy or difficult emotional patches like jealousy. It's often through navigating these challenges together that you build real resilience as a couple.
Now, while all these steps are about, healthy ways to manage jealousy, the sources also draw a really clear line in the sand. They highlight some crucial red flags behaviors that are not healthy and signal something potentially more serious.
Yes, and this is such a critical distinction. When jealousy stops being about a feeling you need to manage internally and morphs into actual control over your partner, that's a major red flag. It's often fear twisted into possessiveness, and sometimes it's disguised as love or caring.
And the guide lists specific examples of what this looks like, doesn't it?
It does. Behaviors like constantly checking your partner's phone without permission, trying to dictate who they can talk to or spend time with, using emotional manipulation like, if you really loved me, you wouldn't do X, Y, or Z. Or even using your own stated jealousy to guilt trip or isolate your partner from their friends or family.
Yeah, those aren't signs of love at all. They're signs of an unhealthy, controlling dynamic that needs serious attention.
Absolutely. These behaviors signal a need for honest, potentially very difficult conversations or maybe even professional help, because they chip away at the very foundation a healthy relationship is built on. Mutual communication, commitment, trust, and care.
Which is the complete opposite of control. So, okay, zooming back out from all these steps and warnings, jealousy is, well, it's a complex beast.
It is, but as we've sort of unpacked from the material here, it's also something you can understand better, actively manage, and even use as a catalyst for deeper connection and growth, both within yourself and as a couple.
It's like that powerful message the sources leave us with. This is a signal, not a sentence. I can work through this.
It gives you back your agency, doesn't it? You don't have to be defined or controlled by the feeling itself.
So here's something maybe to consider based on everything we've just discussed in this deep dive. How might truly accepting jealousy as a signal one that points inward, perhaps, or maybe to a dynamic in the relationship rather than seeing it as just a fundamental personal flaw or some kind of catastrophe, how might that actually change the way you approach vulnerability and trust in your most important connections going forward? Definitely something to mull over.
If this video meant something to you, please like it. It helps more people find it. Leave a comment, even a small one. I'd love to hear from you. Share this with someone who needs it. And don't forget to subscribe. The next video might be just what you need.